You're listening to a main feed episode. Go to patreon.com/Celtic Ligers where €5 a month gets you weekly full-length episodes, stray bonus content and access to the back catalog. Also helps cover hosting and gives us money for sweeties. Thank you. Celtic Ligers.
Recorded Monday 15th of April 2024.
We went to the movies, Celtic Liger movie time.
Yeah. A little film called
Civil War.
Civil War.
And let me tell you, I'm really happy to see Spider-Man in the MCU. I hope that they don't have some sort of origin story because that'll just slow things down.
Yeah.
And Black Panther, I can't wait for his solo movie personally.
And Bigfoot and
Doo-Doo
Dooley.
and Bringo and Bingo.
Yeah. Dracula was there. It was scary.
No, of course we're talking about the tentpole blockbuster movie from A24, Civil War, written and directed by Alex Garland. How much do you know about it? Do you remember? Did you look up anything about Alex Garland? By the way?
No.
Okay. Wait. So first of all, the plot of the movie is imagine a version of America that's slightly in the future, and there's a civil war going on.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. Now, there's obviously a story, but just for the purposes of... But Alex Garland is also writer and director of one of your favorites, Annihilation, from 2018.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? With Natalie Portman.
I did
Oscar
like
Isaac.
Annihilation.
You didn't like it at all?
I did. No.
Oh, God. I cannot... Okay,
I'm
good,
thinking of
'cause I was like-
Arrival. Thinking of Arrival.
Oh, no, Arrival's good. Yeah.
No, Annihilation was shit.
You hated Annihilation. You hated it so much. I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was good.
To me, it was like... have you seen a little film called The Joker movie?
Yeah.
And have you seen another film called Taxi Driver?
Yeah.
You know, Annihilation is to Stalker
Interesting.
as Joker is to Taxi Driver.
Annihilation.
Taxi Joker.
What? Okay. Yes. All right. I get it. I'm on board now. I haven't seen Stalker, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about now because I've seen it in like Adam Curtis documentaries.
It's just a stupider version for losers, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then, since I haven't seen Stalker, it's yet to be ascertained whether I'm a stupid loser, as you've said.
The Stalker is...
I didn't think of it.
Stalker is about it's like these Russian, it's in the USSR, these Russian soldiers are led by a guy into this like this weird alternate zone where like the rules of nature are
Yeah, kind of breaking down and no
Yeah.
longer apply.
yeah, and no, I'm not talking about England.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Galway.
Yeah.
Galway
is that's a better one actually.
And then Annihilation is like, what if going into the forest was like smoking LSD? It's like,
Yeah.
what if it was trippy and the deer had 5 heads, you know?
Am I crazy, or is Stalker, was that made like in the Soviet Union,
Yeah.
or like as the collapse of the Soviet Union was happening? So this idea of a context in which you're making it in, where it's like, I mean, the way that Adam Curtis would talk about it was like unreality and things not making any sense, and like how, I don't know, do you know, like somebody who's an artist who is making art of their time, responding to things around them. Whereas Annihilation, like a lot of movies by people who went to college, is like, hey, I love like Evil Dead, so why didn't I just make an Evil Dead?
Yeah.
Except this one, it's like, I love Stalker, so I'm just going to make a Stalker.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But yeah. That was really what it was. To me, that's what it was. It was like,
Yeah.
my own version of Stalker, where everything's more psychedelic. It's like,
Or like, yeah,
whereas like
when
the
you
guy who
see,
makes
like-
Stalker, he's not trying to make a copy of Stalker. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And like
yes, exactly.
like
yeah.
Taxi Driver and Joker, it's like Taxi Driver was obviously responding to some like 70s paranoia and like
Yeah,
a breakdown of trust, you know, over the Vietnam War. And then the Joker movie is like, what did this fucked up psycho
yeah.
like killed a guy on TV, you know?
Like Adam Alan Moore, when he was talking about the Killing Joke, like, which he's like really regrets making the Killing Joke the origin story for the Joker. He was like, I can't remember the exact quote, and maybe I should just have it in front of me. But he's like, it wasn't saying anything about the human condition. He was like, it was just saying what two imaginary characters were to each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So he's like, they weren't even stand-ins for anything. It's just like, what if like Dracula met the Wolfman? You know? You'd be like, I guess. I don't, you know. So he's embarrassed because he's like, I wasn't saying anything with that, you know? But similarly, like you're saying about like Stalker is like, man, this is what it feels like to be in the Soviet Union right now. And then Annihilation is like, wasn't it cool in Stalker when this guy, like, I don't know, I haven't seen the movie, melted into the landscape, you know?
Yeah.
What if we did that but with today's effects?
Yeah, that really is what I felt like. Like maybe like there's always a very small chance I'm missing something, but it really did feel like if they made Annihilation today, they'd be like, what if we use trippy AI effects, you know, to make it?
Yeah.
Just make it as
I believe
trippy as
that.
humanly possible.
So the filmography for this feller, famously he wrote the book The Beach, which Danny Boyle turned into a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio in late 90s. I can't get the exact date. And then he started working with Danny Boyle, and he wrote 28 Days Later. Are you frozen, or are you just not responding?
I'm listening.
He's looking at his fucking phone.
I'm not. I'm listening. 28 days
I
later.
thought you'd have something to say about 28 Days Later.
I've been very 28 weeks later. It's scarier.
What did you make of 28 Weeks Later? Because I thought there was some bits in it that I quite liked.
28 weeks later.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. It's all right.
No, I said I loved it.
I know, but I'm saying it was all right.
Whereas, so I will take 28 days later. I'll apply the same thing. I think 28 weeks later is for stupid people, but I loved it. It was like, more zombies, better effects, scarier.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I think Alex Garland also, he did. He was an uncredited writer on 28 Weeks Later. So apparently he came up with like a loose story. So I love the idea of Robert Carlyle in 28 Weeks Later being a coward and leaving his family to be eaten by zombies. I loved that.
Yeah.
And then I loved when they were in like a busted up London and the American military is in there and they're having to fight against different factions, you know. I thought that was fun.
I don't know why, but whenever, like a post-apocalyptic film set in America, it's like, that's what it's like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it's set in London, it really freaks me out.
I know.
I don't know why. It just does. It's just like really freaky.
Yeah. Well, I love 28 Days Later, obviously, because Cillian Murphy, one of his breakout roles. Brendan Gleeson's in it, has one of the worst British accents I've ever heard on a character, but still manages to be very good. Christopher Eccleston, Doctor Who fame, in there as amazing. And then the way that it's filmed, they filmed it on like DV cameras, so it has that really cheap looking quality to it. And I love 28 Days Later. And Sunshine in 2007. I've seen Sunshine. Fucking great. Sunshine is amazing. Also directed by Danny Boyle. And it's about these guys trying to go and reignite the sun. with
Oh.
on a massive spaceship called the Icarus 2, because the Icarus 1 ended up like going missing, and it's just so funny. Why would you call your
Yeah.
you know like so anyway, it's a really really good film. Just a stupid sci-fi film. I watched it with the director's commentary as well. And apparently they got labor right physicist Brian Cox to come in and give his advice on it. And eventually, after a while, they just went like, "Okay, shut the fuck up. We're gonna do this because it looks cool." You fucking dork. So that was loads of fun. Apparently, he wrote "Never Let Me Go," if you know that one.
It's funny how films used to like. There was no expectation of realism. You know?
Yeah,
It was just like. I remember that when I was watching Napoleon. And everyone was like, it was really badly researched and none of this stuff happened and the uniforms are wrong. It's like, that used to just be how films were.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know, like it, with the scientific accuracy. Like I heard that apparently they told Spielberg, dinosaurs might have had feathers, and he's like, no, fuck that. They're gonna be all scales. They're gonna look like lizards. God damn it! And he's completely right.
Yeah.
If that is true or not apocryphal. But Never Let Me Go is another sort of like science fiction-y, a dystopian romantic drama. Haven't seen it. Not going to comment.
What is it about? A robot
okay.
who falls in love with a with what? A kid.
It's no, it's something about cloning, if I remember correctly.
It's about a man who can only castrate himself once.
But then he wrote, and a lot of people believe directed Dredd in 2012. Do you remember Judge Dredd?
No.
The Judge Dredd movie in 2012.
Never seen it.
Well, it's great. And then Ex Machina 2014.
Shit.
I thought that was shite. Annihilation, I thought it was grand, but I haven't seen Stalker, so I imagine once I do, I'll be like, okay, now I hate this. And then in 2022, he wrote and directed Men. Did you see Men?
No, it looked very bad.
It was fucking pants. It was so shite.
This is just off the movie, off the trailer.
Yeah.
But it looked like someone had briefly explained to him what Me Too was.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I get it. There's one bad guy out there. What was the plot of it?
It's like this. What is the plot of Men again? Zainab and I watched it. It was only there when you asked me that I I don't actually remember. Because one of the things that happens in the movie that's interesting and then distracting and also doesn't entirely work is that, Rory Kinnear. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, he was in...
the actor.
Yeah, he's in... We've talked about it before, the show where it skips ahead, days coming.
Oh yeah, what the fuck called? The Russell T Davies show. The fucking Years and Years.
Years and Years, yeah.
So he's in, so I didn't know that. But Rory Kinnear, he
plays a dad who's radicalized into anti-immigration
so
sentiment.
I can't wait. I'll have to watch that now. We have to watch that. I can't believe we haven't watched that.
I don't know if I can watch it again. But
I'll just watch it
and
then I'll explain it to you.
Well, I watched it.
I know, but I'll be like, remember when this happened? You're like, oh,
yeah. That'd be good.
But so the plot for Men, just in the Harper retreats to the countryside to be alone in the wake of a tragedy, but her unease at the town's leering and uncanny similar men grows into a fully fledged nightmare as her arrival awakens something primal in the forest. Okay, so. Rory Kinnear plays multiple men in this movie, and even a little boy with Rory Kinnear's face on it. And they don't modify his voice or anything.
Okay, and then what happens?
She just kind of goes around, and it's kind of the equivalent of that Tracy Ullman sketch where the man comes in and says that he was mugged, and then they were like, "What were you wearing? Were you wearing what you're wearing right now?"
Oh yeah.
So it's multiple incidents of this guy seems to have broken into my house. Yeah, but were you asking for it? Excuse me? And then it'll be like, oh no, and everybody is a fucking misogynist. And then also it's about it's kind of like folk horror. Do you know that there's like a face of something called, like, I think it's called like the Green Man. Do you know that? And their face is made out of twigs essentially, or has like loads of twigs embedded in it. So that imagery keeps coming up again, and then that's supposed to mean something, and then the movie just basically just does that again and again and again, where you're like, who's that in the background? Oh, it's fine. Oh no, it's not. Oh, the film's over. You know, it's like that.
Okay.
So anyway, that was it. That was like, but like a lot of those films kind of have in common is like, oh, we have like a little bit of politics or commentary on it, and it's like, well, what are you saying in it? I don't know. Just gives a bit of texture to things, though, doesn't it? You know? And so now we go to present day, 2024, Civil War. Okay, and this one was like, everyone was getting excited for this because it was a British guy going like, now we're going to have an American Civil War where Texas and California join forces to take on President fucking Ron Swanson. And like,
yeah.
Anyway, let me get the Google plot for this. You know, the one where it gives you it in a paragraph, so we can just...
Yeah.
In a dystopian future America, a team of military-embedded journalists races against time to reach Washington, D.C. before rebel factions descend upon the White House.
Did you... I'm going to say this. I liked it.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is going to make...
I don't think it made any good points. You know? I don't think it was clever.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't particularly like any of the characters.
No. I would...
But when I was watching... First of all, I saw it in 4DX.
Oh, God. I saw those pictures. I was like, what in the world? It'd be like seeing Schindler's List in 4DX, you know?
It was so weird. Have you ever seen a 4DX film? I've never seen one.
No. When I was like... One time we went to America when I was like 12, and we went to like Universal Studios, and that was the first time they're like, hey, put on the 3D glasses, and oh my God, doesn't it look like in this Terminator thing, doesn't it look like something coming out of the screen? And then what would happen is some jets of air would go off at your feet. Oh my God, that's the robots reaching for your legs or something. And then it would be like jets of water going into your face, you know?
So in 4DX, the seats move as well.
I heard that from a friend where it was like, they're just like punching you in the back the entire time.
But they also like, they shift, like they turn you sideways.
Really?
Like the base of the seat moves.
Okay.
It's so weird. And like, the seats are real comfortable. And then you're watching the trailers. And then only some of the trailers have like the 4DX experience.
Mm.
And one of them was like, it was like, it was a Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
And like, there's no action in the trailer.
Mm.
So it's just you're getting jerked around for no reason.
Yeah.
And the effects are the seat jerks around.
Yeah.
And then there's an effect where it literally feels like someone is kicking the back of your seat.
Yeah.
Like booting the back of it. And
you're paying extra for this, by the way.
Weirdly, no.
Oh, really? Okay, all right.
I don't know. Like, I thought it was going to be like 20 quid. It was 12 quid.
Mm. And
then, there's the air. And then there's like strobe light.
Yeah.
Which is completely unnecessary. Like, you're watching a gunfight happen.
Yeah.
There's already flashing light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then there's also like a strobe effect in the cinema. And then there's a smoke machine as well.
That is so shit. That is so shit.
Yeah. So like, it does not help you get immersed in the film.
It's funny that like when you say hear smoke machine, I don't know, people are like, oh, that's fun. Me, when I hear a smoke machine, I just think of some fucking staff member has to go in and I gotta put the dry ice in the machine again.
Yeah.
So that people can
watch
also like Civil War.
But the other thing is that you're watching a film.
Yeah.
So when they start spraying smoke in the air, like it just like
just like
I never see the film. Yeah.
I love like what did they use those effects when you had to watch an extended shot of a man being burned inside a tire? Did they put like a bunch of smoke in the air to be like, this is what it would be like if you were there? You know, if you take out the little card, you can use a coin to scratch off human flesh.
Yeah. The effect was mostly used for driving sequences.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, so when they were like driving and then careen off the road, you see, you would just go like, woof,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah. So it was really just like, or if there was an explosion, it would jerk you around. It was really just annoying.
And despite all that, you liked the film.
I don't know why I liked it. I just did.
I really hated it. We were watching it, and I was just like the politics were to. I feel bad going like, oh, let's talk about the politics of it for a politics podcast because it's so.
No, like it's
just
like.
Yeah.
Like it's overtly political. Like, as in, we shouldn't feel bad because if you write a Civil War movie, the only way to view it is through politics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're saying that.
Even if it's completely empty of real politics.
Like, I guess it just started off, and then they're going like, it's Nick Offerman, the president, rehearsing his speech, and then they're going like, in the future, there's a big civil war happening, and then you're like, they don't tell you any of the factions or anything that's going on. They're like, you'll pick it up, and then it's like, no, you don't, because none of it makes any sense, because there's no kind of real world, like. If I was looking at it and I was going like, there's some movies that have been made in like the Trump era where they're like, what if the Trump guys took over? Or what if the rich guys took over? Like The Purge, for example. Or what's the one with Ready or Not is another one. Or even something like Knives Out. Do you know, like there's this idea of like the rich, the powerful, people who are involved in certain politics and have factions, you know. Whereas this one goes out of its way to be like what I would call like the Gen X thing. It reminded me of like Charlie Brooker, particularly the he made something called Dead Set. Have you ever seen that? Where it's like
no.
What if zombie apocalypse broke out and the only safe place was the Big Brother house? Okay. And it's just like it's like the Felix Biederman parody of Black Mirror. Like,
what if your phone knew your name? what if you and your computer had the same birthday? what if your mate was a TV? What if you had to plug your dog into a wall and charge him? What if instead of someone saying, how was your day, they said, what did you download?
I think with this guy, Garland, with all his films, there's like, there's a jumping off point that he completely abandoned.
That's it. Yeah.
So with this one, I think, I don't know when he started writing this, but it feels like he...
In 2020.
Watched... Okay, so he saw January 6th, am I right?
No, he didn't. That hadn't happened yet. It was the Black Lives Matter protests. And
it just, to me, it felt like if he had seen January 6th happen, and it was like, that's mad. What if he was successful?
Yeah.
And then stopped thinking after that point. Like, because the thing is sets up, the president he's like making the speech. He's rehearsing the speech. And then you find out that he's in his third term.
Yeah.
So it's like, what if Trump succeeded in not stepping down?
Yeah. And it is like, he's modeled after Trump, but then also has this other thing where Trump is so ludicrous that you don't want to put him in your movie if you're trying to make a serious point. So they have to like soften him and make him or harden him, I guess, make him like this libertarian sort of guy where he's like he's authoritarian, you know, but it also like doesn't work
Yeah.
entirely. What I meant to say is that like the other thing about like that Charlie Brooker, the Brit Gen X thing of like, why don't you look up from your fucking phones every now and again, you know? That idea of like they have to start off lecturing you, and then the next thing that happens is they want to subvert the audience expectations so much. Be like, this is what you expected would happen, but what if it was actually this guy, huh? I bet you didn't think about that, you know? I bet you thought that, you know, let's say you start the movie and there's a guy where it's like, there's a soldier, and I bet you thought you could trust him. Aha, no, you can't. Aha. You know, there's this type of like attempt at a bunch of like rug pull moments, or like, don't make assumptions about people's politics. Don't make assumptions about people and in general. Or
Oh, wait. Do you think that they were trying to do a rug pull at the start?
no, what I'm saying is that
Okay.
like there is. What I'm trying to say, I'm getting distracted, is that there are certain kind of things that happen in a narrative, and then you're like, I'm not going to do the conventional thing. I'm going to just take a sharp left turn here. But then you end up taking so many left turns that you're just going around in a fucking circle and making absolutely no sense, you know?
So once I realized that it wasn't going to make any sense,
Yeah, exactly.
that's when I started to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, yeah, if there was a civil war,
Yeah.
stuff would stop making sense very quickly.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know if that was his intention. I don't think it was.
I don't think it was, no.
But, so then I just sat back and I was like, okay, just loads of stuff is going to
Yeah.
happen here.
But like I thought, like because you had the flag with the 2 stars and then the stripes, you know, at one point, and then when they go, oh, yeah, California and Texas have gone together, I was like, so you're telling me that California and Texas are taking on the other like 48 states
Yeah.
or 47, 48 states, and I was like, that's so stupid. And then I looked it up on Wikipedia afterwards, and it turns out there's multiple factions involved in the fighting, but they just thought like, yeah, it's okay to just obliquely reference them, you know?
For some reason, I don't know why, maybe it's just because I think they published the map.
Yes, they did.
I think there are 3 factions.
There are, yeah. Well, maybe I'll figure out I'll put up the factions. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are the loyalist states, which are basically the kind of Rust Belt and the East Coast. And then there is Western forces, which are California and Texas. And then there's the New People's Army, which is like Oregon and the Northwest states. And then there is the Florida Alliance, which is basically just the Deep South, including
Okay.
Florida. And
And
the blue faction, which, sorry, I know you can't see this map, the Loyalist states are led by President Ron Swanson. And,
Okay.
And then he's like, so here's another quote I just want to read before we get into it as well. This one people have picked up on quite a lot. Is the Hollywood Reporter. Civil War director blasts incredibly dangerous political divide in interview. So, at one point, Garland rather passionately pointed out the Civil War is trying to create a conversation about political divisiveness in general that vilifies the other side, ratcheting up rhetoric into an ethical debate which makes it easier to see others as evil. And once somebody is considered morally wrong, their opponents can justify all sorts of extreme measures to stop them. Why are we talking and not listening, he asked. We've lost trust in the media and politicians, and some in the media are wonderful and some politicians are wonderful, on both sides of the divide.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
I have a political position, and I have good friends on the other side of that I would love to know his political position, because it was completely incoherent by this movie. And I have good friends on the other side of that political divide. Honestly, I'm not trying to be cute. What's so hard about that? Why are we shutting conversation down? Left and right are ideological arguments about how to run a state. That's all they are. They're not right or wrong or good and bad. It's which do you think has greater efficacy? That's it. You try one, and if that doesn't work, you vote it out and you try again a different way. That's a process, but we've made it into good and bad. just gibberish. But he made a movie in which the president is refusing to step down, and it's like, hey, if you don't like him, just vote him out,
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
what the fuck are you talking about? Even in your own movie. So he's trying to be like, this is what it's kind of like, this kind of political rhetoric, and it's amping up all of these hostilities, and then everybody's turning against each other, and who's to say who's right or wrong? And then he's like, anyway, journalism is important, and we need to be photographing all of this stuff so that people can see. And you're just like, yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be spoiler. We're going to go spoiler heavy. Would you say?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I get the little plot up here, and maybe we can walk through it, and it'll jog some memories.
So yeah.
Okay.
But
I just wanted to say from that starting point where it's like, okay, we're going to make a movie called Civil War about a new American Civil War that is about that is just, like you say, blatantly has to be political. And then this guy's like, no, I refuse. But I am still going to make my heavily political movie, just trying to remove as much politics as possible. And I'm going to try and capture what it's like in the current moment, except I'm not. It's going to be what a British guy thinks when he's reading some things that are happening in America and just shaking his head and going like, both sides, why can't they all just get around the table and hash this fucking thing out,
So there's a moment in the film where, so the lead of it is this, what's her name again?
Dunst.
Photographer. Kirsten Dunst. And she's going, when I was a war reporter all around the place, I thought I was sending a message home.
Yeah, I know.
Don't do this. And you can tell that Garland thinks he's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
He's like, this is a message, not to have a civil war.
Okay.
Don't let your divides get in the way. They're just. But I think that by the end of the film,
he's having his cake and eating it for sure. Yeah, that was something.
But I think by the end of the film, you realize that actually these three characters are just adrenaline junkies.
Yeah.
And they actually don't care about politics, and they don't care about, to them it's just like chasing the spectacle.
Yeah.
Like, they want to meet the president just because it's hard, not because it means anything.
But it's also wrong as well because, clearly what he's responding to, what I took to mean, because the start of the movie shows a bunch of footage from BLM that just tries to position as, this is society collapsing, which is really funny. Just like the Black Lives Matter protests, who's to say who's right or wrong and whether Black Lives Matter,
There also were very few black people in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
For a film about a civil war in America.
Yeah. Hey, they had one. Come on. So the BLM footage at the start, incidentally, it is also the reason why fascist Andy Ngo has a credit at the end of the movie, because they use some of his footage. Because Andy Ngo would go out there and he would film this stuff and he'd be like, look at this. This is, this society is tearing itself apart. The black people are revolting, They're the ones who would use this footage to be like, Kyle Rittenhouse was right. He had to shoot those guys with an AK, And so they're using that footage in the movie, which, you just need footage, I guess. But it is interesting to use that footage again to evoke civil unrest, and then to have a movie about a civil war, and then to just be like, but who's to say? So in the near future, a civil war, this is Wikipedia, has erupted between the authoritarian United States government and various secessionist movements. Renowned war photographer Lee Smith saves aspiring photojournalist Jesse from a suicide bombing in New York City. So the film starts out with a bunch of people trying to get water from a truck, and then somebody runs, a blonde woman runs into it and blows herself up.
I like that scene. No, I want to keep saying, when I say I liked it, there's no bit where I'm ever going to be like, I thought it was clever. I just mean I liked it.
But that's another example of the kind of inversion of what, it's like, haha, I bet you didn't expect a young, middle-class blonde lady to blow herself up for a cause.
You thought it'd be a Muslim.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, what's the cause? Never you mind what the cause is. Just know that she's willing to die for it. You're like, fuck, fine.
Yeah.
And then it's like Kirsten Dunst, she's like dead behind the eyes. She's like, I'm going around for photographing, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a little girl there who's like, I want to be just like you when I grow up, which is like,
She's 23.
in the movie.
In the movie.
Did they say that?
She says it, yeah.
Oh, fuck, never mind. I thought she was like 16 and she was meant to be 16.
No. That's why the guy's trying to
19.
fuck her.
Yeah, he was a little bit, wasn't he?
Yeah. So, yeah, she's 23.
Okay. So when I was just seeing this character like a mile off, and I was like, oh, fuck me. Because this young character who's like plucky and is like, I want to be just like you. And it was like, I was like, there's no way that by the end of this movie, she will have melted the heart of Kirsten Dunst and broken her tough facade. To get under. There's just no way that's going to happen. I don't know why they're including this character, but I was already like, racking up the amount of characters who I did not want to spend any time with at all, but would probably be there for the majority of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lee and her colleague Joel intend to travel to Washington, D.C. to interview and photograph the third-term president before secessionist forces take the city. Their mentor, Sammy, asks them to come as far as Charlottesville. The first distasteful thing in this movie, to be like an apolitical Civil War movie and then have Charlottesville as like a key thing, Like, it is really, when during Black Lives Matter, like influencers would come out and then they would photograph themselves nailing or like doing spray paint or something, and then they get back in their car and drive away, It's like it's like civil unrest as a costume, and you just bring up these things. Who cares? They just I've got the footage from Black Lives Matter. Who cares? I'll say that it's for my thing. I've got like FEMA trucks handing out water. Who cares why that's happening? I don't know. And then Charlottesville, which is like so emotionally charged because of the death of Heather Heyer and the Tiki Torch riots that took place there in 2017. Fascist riots. And then it's like, oh, we got to get to Charlotte. And he was like, okay, cool. Where the Western forces of Texas and California are assembling. Despite Lee's hesitance, she and Joel agree. Unbeknownst to Lee, Jesse also convinces Joel to take her with them as well.
I like Joel, this character.
I didn't like him. I didn't really care for him.
I liked the two. Well, the other Joel and the Kirsten Dunst. I did like.
Yeah.
Because
I thought Kirsten Dunst was all right. I didn't think she was that. I think she wasn't given much to work with, if I'm honest. But I think she did a lot with what she had.
I was just worried, and again, I don't know what he was thinking, but my reading of it is like, I like the way there were these characters, and say this was written by Aaron Sorkin, it'd be like all these speeches about like how journalism's so important, and it's like the ultimate truth, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Whereas these characters are all just like, no, we have to do this because it's the only thing we do.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, you don't even, why wouldn't you do it? It's the thing you do, and it's good fun.
I also hate
it's exciting.
that depiction of journalists, because citizen journalists, maybe even Andy Ngo putting himself in harm's way, okay? But then like make it a broad commentary on like war photographers or war journalists in general, like I was like, that's a really broad assessment that you're making there,
I know, like, there was definitely a thing of like, these war journalists are soldiers too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like, which is so lame.
I know. And then they're like, we have to get these photos out there for people to see. And then I was thinking,
but they dropped that quick enough.
I know. No, but they kept it. I think that so we're skipping ahead a bit, but like basically, after a number of set pieces of them, hey, this is happening in the United States. Pretty crazy, huh?
Well, like what?
There's a bunch of things like that. Like, I don't know, the Winter Wonderland bit where there's a bunch of like inflatable snowmen lined across a road. And then they go, what is this, a trap? And then a sniper takes a shot at them. And then they duck behind some stuff. And then it turns out there's two soldiers there.
I like that scene.
I like that scene as well. But like, what I'm saying is like, it's just a collection of those type of scenes. It's like, isn't that a weird thing? And it's happening in America. Imagine the violence that you expect to be happening in Baghdad, but it's happening in America.
But the thing is, I felt like that scene was a good example of something that would only happen in America. Like, not only in the whole world, but it was like...
Yeah.
It was like a uniquely symbolic of America.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, you can imagine if violence breaks out, and then suddenly it's like, okay, this is my house. This is...
Yeah.
Like, this is... You know, like
Well,
we're...
particularly those two soldiers, I thought that they were really... They were somebody I was like, okay, now that's something I recognize, and that would be real.
It's like, you know, when we were talking about Israel and like and Nazi Germany, and like their symbolic thing is like the peasant farmer.
Yeah.
Whereas for Americans, it's the homesteader. It's like the guy who's protecting
on the frontier.
Yeah.
You know? Frontier justice, and that's why programs like Yellowstone are so popular, are justified. Even,
yeah.
you know?
So when you have this guy and he's in a mansion, like this weird McMansion thing, and he has a sniper, and he's just like, "This is my frontier. This is my farm.
Yeah.
You're not allowed on it. You're like the Native Americans." I thought it was a good.
No, I liked it, and I did really like those two soldiers where they're basically like, well, who are you firing at? That fucking guy.
Yeah.
That's your problem. You know, just completely checked out, and then eventually they shoot him, and he goes, I got some good news. Just like, and then the way that they looked as well, his like fingernails were painted. They'd clearly just been like two guys who were walking around goofing off, and then this guy started shooting at them, and they're like, well, gotta get to work, you know? You do, it's kind of like Apocalypse Now, where it's like, this is breaking down. This isn't going to last that much longer, you know?
Yeah.
We're going to be out of here soon. We're like just picking off people for fun at this stage because we've just become so jaded.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was one scene and that was good. But then that just kept happening again. The same beat again and again.
Well, let's go
It's
through
like,
the scenes. Cause they're the...
Okay. What I meant to say though is that like when they go like, well, it's very important that we take these photographs to send them back. And then you're just like, is it? And then later on is like, maybe it isn't. And then some guy steps in and goes, but it is. they just continue on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after departing the city, the group stops. Now, this one I really wanted to bring up. After departing the city, the group stops at a rural gas station protected by armed men. While they negotiate the purchase of fuel, Jessie wanders off to a nearby car wash she saw from the road.
Yeah. There was a minute there was beating that, and I was like, this is so stupid, where it's like,
yeah,
the guy's like, they're like, can we buy some petrol? What if we pay over the odds? It's like, how much? What about $300? And the guy's like, that won't get you anything. No, I mean Canadian dollars. And like, you can just feel it's like, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Like, you thought it was dollars. Well, actually, in this crazy world, Canadian dollars what you want.
Yeah. That currency is more stable, isn't that insane? And then, but this is the part where I also started to get like annoyed with the movie, because you're saying, January 6th, what if the insurrectionists took over? And you'd be like, cool. Like, what would that look like? The guy who went into Nancy Pelosi's office and took a shit in her desk. The guy who had like the antlers walking around and everybody hooting and hollering. And one thing that they have in this, because they tried to like, you know, sand off the edges of Trump to make President Ron Swanson. And the lunacy of Trump and the culture war stuff of Trump and the entitlement are such an important part. So when they go Canadian, I thought that this guy would shoot you in the head. It's like, fuck Canadian, I want US dollars. You know what I mean? Like, there was just no way that you felt like, and then the fact like, I was like, oh, and they have to be careful not to telegraph that they're journalists, because then these guys will just kill them, you know, as they've said before, that journalists just get shot. But then press is written on the side of their truck, and then they announce themselves as press. And then basically at the back, there was guys who were looting, who are now hung up and basically being tortured in a car wash, okay? And then he's like, little girl, you know, like, what you want me to do with these, you know? And it's like meant to be a hick, average Trump supporter. And he's like eager to have his photo taken, which, admittedly, you know, that's very January 6th. But there is a part of it where it's like, the lying mainstream media, how are you going to fucking spin this? There was no like anger or like the Trump stuff that you'd have come to expect in that type of thing. So I just thought that was stupid.
Yeah, it was a very stupid scene.
One owner follows Jesse, but Lee diffuses the situation by taking a photo of the man posed with his victims. After leaving, Jesse berates herself for being too scared to take photos. Following an overnight stop close to ongoing fighting, the group document the combat next day as militiamen assault a building held by loyalists. Oh, I forgot about that bit. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Like, I know they're war
Yeah.
reporters, but, and I know it's a movie, but like, the guys who are like, you stay by me, like, I know I'm risking my life,
Yeah.
like, this is an active situation. This is an active skirmish. But hey, just stand by me and I'll look after you. Just don't think that would happen.
Yeah, I was
By the way.
wondering about that as well. And I was wondering which faction out of the civil... Because at one point before they leave New York, they're like, people will kill you if they think you're a journalist out there. Those wouldn't be that hard to imagine these days, would it? You know? But anyway, like, they say people will kill you. And I was like, who will kill you? Every single faction seems to be like, yeah, no, get a good look at this, you know? There's like, again, the Gen X trick that I was telling you about, like, you know, subverting your expectations, or like, doesn't that image shock you? What if I juxtapose it with like a shock music choice? So they come into a building and they hear some guy whimpering in army fatigues. They get up to the top, shoot him, and then it immediately turns to a De La Soul song, which I can't remember which song it was, but it was like, wow, the juxtaposition of this music and these images, quite jarring. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, man, we've been there, we've done that. Now it's every single movie trailer is like, it is really apocalyptic, because I think that was when it happened in like those Vietnam movies where they're like, you know, Creed is playing.
And that was 50 years ago. That was 50 years
exactly.
ago.
It's like, we're over this shit now. Can we like... And I just thought it was lame. And there was another part about the De La Soul song, which is that I know recently that De La Soul had sampled so many tracks, apparently, and there was something about publishing them, that they couldn't put any of the songs up on YouTube or any streaming services because they didn't have the right permissions for stuff.
Okay.
And then as recently as last year, they managed to acquire the rights back to their own music. So I was also like, I wonder if that has anything to do with it, where it's like, now I can put De La Soul in my movie. And wouldn't it believe, you know, there's no right or wrong in this, because think about, you got your guys in army. Oh, here's the other thing, is that Alex Garland is one of the most boring filmmakers as well. Like, color wise, everything was just like dirt brown. Okay.
Yeah.
It looked like an episode of like The Walking Dead, you know, where everything has that filter over it. So when you're trying to figure out who are the factions in this, it's like, I couldn't even tell you, because people in their normal clothes are still wearing like brown and gray.
Yeah.
You know? So they're like, well, this is a loyalist faction. You're like, all right, if you insist. But anyway, he'll be like, oh no, that was intentional. You can't tell who's who. We don't even know. They're political. They're all just shooting at each other. What's the fucking point, man? And it's like, and then they'll bring up stuff like Charlottesville. And then at one point, I can't remember, but wasn't there something where he goes, yeah, the New Jersey Maoists. Do you remember that one? Where they mentioned Maoists in it?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is so stupid. Oh, and the Antifa massacre. Zainab just reminded me of that.
Yes. I heard that. You took the picture, the famous picture of the Antifa massacre.
Oh, that just drives me mad. Because I was like, again, because if he was grilled on that, he would be like, hey, who's to say whether Antifa carried out the massacre or whether they, you know,
were massacred.
They were the one.
Yeah.
And like at the start of the movie as well, sorry to bounce back, do you remember where they're in the hotel and they're uploading the photos?
Yeah.
And then she goes, the Wi-Fi is so patchy. Like, I can't get my upload to work. You're up. Like, and then at one point she goes, she closes her laptop and goes, I'm going to go upstairs and finish the upload there. And I was like, you just close the window. Like most people would be like, the upload stops then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like you're just going to have, but it was like, it's just like these people, they're doing that about uploading. I know it's a nitpicking, stupid thing to say, but it's the same way that they deploy Antifa. where it's just like, I got to finish my upload to social media, the social media site that everybody's on. This thing's going viral. I got 30 likes already, you know, and the Antifa massacre that they carried out at Black Lives Matter campus. You know, you're just like, these are just words to you. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, continuing on, the group spend the night at a refugee camp before passing through a small town where, under watchful guard, residents attempt to live in blissful ignorance.
So the refugee camp was stupid.
That was stupid as well, yeah.
Also some extremely clumsy dialogue where the little girl is sitting on the steps.
Yes.
And then the other one comes over and your one's developing film.
Yeah.
Also the fact that she uses a film camera is extremely annoying. And then
yeah, I know.
She's developing the thing, and then she's like, I got 15 minutes while these develop. That's just enough time for you to tell me some cool stories, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, it really was just like being like, can we have some exposition now, please?
That even really reminded me of The Walking Dead, where it's like, okay, big, short, sharp burst of extreme violence. Then we go to like a secluded area where like somebody is sitting down moping, waiting for somebody else to approach them to have some sort of conversation about what is life under this.
Yeah, but I feel like even in Walking Dead, they wouldn't be like, now that we have found a camp, maybe you can tell me about your kid who died, you know?
Yeah.
Like she literally goes like, now that we have some time, why don't you tell me some cool stories?
There's actually like a bunch of those as well. Like that doesn't happen just once. It happens like multiple times where she's like sitting out on a jetty by a lake, and then Kirsten Dunst comes over like, you all right?
Yeah.
Or she's sitting up in the bleachers of some place going, you all right? And then they're at a hotel or something, or she's in the car, and then the other guy comes over and he goes, you all right? What you saw today? And you're like,
well, at least
man, like,
when the guy comes over, he's trying to fuck her. You know what I mean?
That is something that
There's
was kind of
some other texture to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas,
you have to have a moment. You have to have stuff happen. Otherwise, people don't care what happens to your characters. So even though I've already done the stuff that I want to do, it really felt like this guy was like, I just gotta get to the part that I want to do. I know I've got like an hour of this movie to fill up, you know?
Yeah.
And then I have about half an hour of the shit that I actually want to do at the end. But anyway, later they are pinned down. Yeah. They
go into the town then.
Oh, the town. Yeah. Sorry, I almost skipped over. I didn't really like that bit either, because I was like, what are you trying to say? Because the other thing is, it's important to know what factions are there, you know? Because like, so there's we forgot to mention the old black guy who's with them. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're in this town, and it's like, wow, everything feels normal in this town. And she's like, it's reminding me of the way things were. And then he goes, funny, reminds me of how things are. Take a look up at that top of that building. And then they show some like snipers up there. And it's like, oh, there actually is like a military occupation in this town and violence, repression of, and then I was like, but to give that to the black character, I thought like, what's happening in this world? I guess it's just, I thought that stuff would be more racially motivated, you know?
Yeah, I feel like, this was a moment where they're trying to be like, you know, this is a white town.
Yeah,
and that's why
exactly.
That's why it's so bougie. But like, the film is so white that there's no difference between.
Exactly, and there's no difference between their uniforms, so you don't even know who's fucking enforcing it. Like, I was like, is this the loyalist, like, President Swanson who needs to be dethroned, or is it the other factions? And it's like, hey, maybe those factions aren't that different after all. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
What are we doing here? Later, they're pinned down in a sniper battle. I'm going to do a real
what was the sniper battle one?
That's the one with the amusement park.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. But the other thing, there's a bit where like Joel says, "We're press, okay?"
Yeah.
And he goes, and the guy responds by going, "So that explains why it's written on the side of your vehicle," you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, I think a better line for that guy would have been something like, yeah, I saw your car or something. Do you know what I mean? Like he just had this overly eloquent way of putting it that really felt like Alex Garland was like, this is what this guy thinks, and I'm articulating it with my words so that people can understand, you know?
Yeah.
But also, like, again, I don't know. That is a real nitpicky thing, but there was all the dialogue. It felt like kind of like, this might be really harsh, but like a Kevin Smith movie where everybody talks in this overly eloquent uni voice, you know? Nobody had like a texture where they were, except for some actors who were kind of brought a bit of themselves to it, you know, like Jesse Plemons, who's coming up, who just like pretty much steals the show, in my opinion, with that.
That
one
was
scene.
such a good scene.
I know, it's so good.
It was amazing.
So Jessie's nerve builds and her photography skills improve as she witnesses several deaths, and she develops a mentorship under Lee. Jessie asks if Lee would photograph Jessie being killed, and Lee indicates that she might. And you're like, okay, I'm sure that's never going to come up ever again. Thank you. Noted. While driving, the foursome encounter two other reporters they know, Tony and Bahai. Tony and Jessie playfully switch cars, only for Bahai and Jessie's car to be captured by a militia group who have been executing civilians and dumping them in a mass grave.
That was such a weird setup to that scene.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Like...
Yeah, I was like, what, I don't understand, you know?
And then there's a bit where... What's his name? What's the older journalist's name?
Sammy? That makes
Sammy.
sense?
He's like...
Sammy, yes.
He's like, this feels like a trap, or this doesn't feel right. And then it's just... It wasn't a trap, it was just weirdness. I don't know. Part of me liked it and part of me didn't.
So basically there's a big pit filled with bodies and lime. Is it lime or lye?
Lime. So they said, yeah, lime.
And then it's like Jesse Plemons doing like one of his trademark psychopaths. But like in Breaking Bad, he played like, you remember?
Yeah.
And then...
So he captures, essentially, there's a little girl and his new journalist.
You said she was 23 and you keep calling her a little girl. She was definitely coded to be a teenager, you know?
And then the other woman and the Brazilian guy and the...
Oh, not Brazilian, as we find out in the next few... No, he is Brazilian. The actor is Brazilian.
Oh,
but like, when they come over, they go, hey, there seems to be a mistake here. We're journalists. And he's like, all right. So,
yeah,
whatever.
his act was really good here.
Yeah,
And,
it's so good.
And then he's like...
And his little pink glasses as well. Sorry, but I just love...
Yeah.
Like, you just have this idea that he's walking around. Maybe there's like a kid who was wearing these pink glasses. He like picked them off, put them on as a goof, and he's still just walking around and just very dispassionately getting rid of all of these bodies. And it's, again, another character who comes close to the idea of like, this is what like a Trump loyalist would be like, you know?
Yeah, like, it is like the guy who got into the White House on January 6th.
Yeah.
Was wearing... No, well, not the White House, whatever it was. He was wearing like a buffalo hat.
Yeah, yes.
It is just like a little weird texture in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's like, oh, well, where are you from? And they're like, we're American. And he's like, oh, what bit of American?
Yeah.
And, yeah, that was the only moment in the film where you're like, oh shit, there's like, there's a bit of a stake here.
Yeah, and I recognize this, and these are things that are somewhat familiar to me. But then it's immediately undercut by this guy going like this obvious heavy Brazilian accent, and he goes, where are you from? He goes, Florida. And then the racist Jesse Plemons goes, oh, okay.
He was lying. I thought he was lying.
So he was actually from Brazil?
Well, I presumed he was lying.
Well, even if he was, just the fact that Jesse Plemons is like, oh, this makes sense. Anyway, where are you from? He's like, it's like, to the average, those guys, it doesn't fucking, no, you're not. Where are you really from? Where are you really from? I can hear your accent.
Yeah.
Where are you really from? You know?
Yeah.
And they're just like, Jesse Plemons, the racist, just immediately accepts, I guess this guy is just from where he says he's from, and it doesn't really matter. It's like, that's not actually how racism works.
Yeah. And then he goes to the little girl, he goes, where are you from? She goes, Missouri. And then he's like, What does he say? They call that. There's some nickname for
Yeah,
Missouri.
yeah.
And then he's like, why do they call it that? And she's
Like,
like, I don't know. He's like, anyway, that's real America.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just the bits where you can see him evaluating, like,
yeah,
what counts as real American, what doesn't.
yeah, exactly.
Really good.
And it's like, oh, I'm from China. All right, boom, 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 just immediately.
Yeah. The guy's like, I'm from Hong Kong. China.
Yeah. And then I like that, like, even at the end of it all, he's like, I guess they are American, but I'm not. You know what? The hole's dug and all, so just fucking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then Sammy drives in on a truck, on their truck, and just kills them.
And like,
And then
yeah. I knew that was going to happen. Because when they're about to go in to like rescue the little girl and the
yeah,
Hong Kong guy, they're like, you stay here because you're too old.
yeah.
You're too old and fat
Yeah.
to do anything.
And then they're driving away, and then your man sprays the truck with bullets, and then they decide that Sammy's gotten hit in the one place where I would think would be impossible to get hit at the trajectory of those bullets. You know?
Yeah, he like gets hit in his stomach. And it's like, he was driving away and he was sitting in the front seat.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how does the bullet hit you in your front?
Now,
you
well, it's
know?
time for him to die, so that's the end of him.
Yeah.
Because everybody needs kind of moment like, what are we doing? Is this even worth it? They need some sort of struggle.
Yeah.
And then, yes, that's executed, shot by third, tries to flee. The group arrive in Charlottesville, still shaking my head at that, to find the government's defenders have mostly surrendered, leaving Washington, D.C. largely unprotected.
There's a bit where they find out that the president's going to be killed, basically.
Yeah,
And they're probably not going to get to him before that happens.
yeah,
And then the Brazilian guy is like, Sammy died and he didn't even die for anything good.
yeah,
And to me, that was a bit where it's like, oh yeah, they don't actually care about the politics. You know,
Yeah,
like he's
yeah.
not like, oh, he didn't even die for anything worthwhile or
yeah,
righteous. It's like, he didn't die for anything cool,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the most kind of military part of it as well. It reminded me of like there was a mini series called Generation Kill that I think David Simon wrote, although I could be wrong, written about a Rolling Stone journalist who went to whatever conflict in the Middle East and hung out with a bunch of Marines, and it's like, they're fucked up guys, but I'm glad they're on our side. That type of shit, you know? And
Yeah.
where these journalists like Micheál Martin in his flak jacket pointing at the holes in the ceiling of some place in Israel, they get off on the idea that I'm out here, I'm one of you, I'm like a soldier, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's shit I was in the shit, they were trying to come for me. And so like this is like one of those moments where it's like just wish fulfillment for journalists going like, he got the fucking died for nothing, one of our guys got and he's drinking himself into a stupor, you know? And then you're one sitting out in a jetty and Kirsten Dunst comes out and goes, hey kid, how are you? Like just another hey kid moment. And I can't even remember what they said there. Something about Sammy, he was a good guy, he was one of the good guys, you know, and like a military movie. So you think like, okay, is this what it is? It's like just to pat journalists on the back for excellent work heading in there and taking photos. I think the other thing that made this film immediately tasteless as well, that was not to be predicted by anybody who made it, was the fact of what's happening in Gaza right now, where it's like you have all these Palestinian journalists and Al Jazeera and people going in and putting their lives on the line to take photographs, while Western journalists just go like, hey, it's complicated, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, there's both sides have a point. It's going back ages. Surely you condemn Hamas. And like there was an interview on BBC or Sky or something there recently or maybe it was some American outlet, I can't remember, but the idea was this woman was being interviewed and she goes, it's actually very hard for like us journalists to get in and photograph what's happening there. And what's revealed in that is that the people who are already there, the Palestinians taking photographs of this stuff and saying what happened, that's not real.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe you could be like, well, this movie's about citizen journalism. You know, that type of stuff that we saw during Black Lives Matter, where people just went out with a camera and started taking pictures. No, because they work for Reuters. They're not citizen journalists. They are like actual official journalists. Reuters, who do the passive voice for Israelis killing Palestinians. The same outlets. They're like taking the important photographs for them, which is important that they do, obviously.
I like the bit where Jesse Plemons is like, "Who are you with?" And they're like, "Reuters," and he's like, "That doesn't sound American." And they're like,
"That's good, yeah."
It's based out of Washington or whatever. He's like, "Doesn't sound American."
Yeah. But also, like, I don't know whether the average Trump guy would be like, "Reuters, I know them because of this, that." You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they'd have the receipts for all of these various news outlets, you know? But anyway, who knows? Maybe they don't. So, yeah, this is so silly as well. They follow the WF as Jesse's photography becomes increasingly risky, while Lee has a brief PTSD episode and is unable to take pictures. Where Kirsten Dunst is like crying and kind of catatonic out there, while in a pretty impressive, like as far as action scenes go, it probably was torture for you and went the way that you were watching it. When I was watching it, I was like, "Ooh, this is cool!" Like you're on the level with the. Yeah, I loved it.
I think this was the bit where the 4DX actually worked.
Okay, cool.
You know, weirdly enough, during the mad action scene, I know the action was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was. It was. I'm trying to think of like a bad action sequence that I thought was bad, but no, I think it was all pretty good for me. Yep. But I thought that the PTSD thing was just really funny, where it's like she's suddenly having an episode and then they don't really explain it, and then it's like she gets through the episode and then she kind of has got these, you know, she's just so goddamn good. You know, she has this, she knows that the president isn't in that limousine. So a limousine bursts out of the White House.
Yeah, the beast.
And immediately gets kind of intercepted by a bunch of military forces who just light it up. And then she's like, no, he's not there. He's in the White House. And so she decides she's going to head to the White House. And they go in and they're following with the military, and the military are like, yeah, come along.
The military follow her.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They go like,
that's actually an important thing to note.
Yeah. They're like, that journalist knows what's really... Like, it's like Neo in The Matrix. It's like he's seen through the story into the reality. It's like, so they follow her, and then they're like, stay close to us. So
it
like,
is also that weird thing where it's like, it's actually a bad thing that a journalist has such a positive relationship with the military, particularly the US military, where you're just like, this is what it is. We're all on the same side fighting for the same goddamn thing. It's like, fuck, man, that's grim. That really shouldn't be that at all. But anyway, WF breach the building and face off with the remaining Secret Service. I also love that bit because I loved seeing the Secret Service in their suits fighting off these fatigued army guys. I thought that was really funny.
I like when your one comes out the press officer.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm here to negotiate. And they just shoot her.
They're like, no, we're not doing that. We're like, he's like, no, but make sure that you don't kill the president. Not doing that. Just shoot. That was really good. I really like that, where it's like, no, we're going to kill him. And I guess we'll shoot you as well, because who cares? And then, so this part here, they're having a firefight in the hallway. The little girl is getting more risky, going out of cover and stuff, and then she finally, in a very decisive moment, jumps out of cover to take this photograph. And just as the hallway is about to be, torn to ribbons by some machine gun or other, and Kirsten Dunst instinctively jumps out and then steps in front of the bullets. Yeah. And in this moment, which I thought was very funny, where it's like, I don't know whether it was a decision by the actor. I find that hard to believe. I think Alex Garland was like, look as evil as possible. Like you were deliberately trying to draw Kirsten Dunst out of fire so that she could get shot, and you usurp her and take her mantle.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of films at the moment, and I would include like the Barbie movie in it as well, where there's this terror of Gen Z. They're just like, these guys are gonna fucking kill us. You know what I mean? Like, because like you don't understand. Like, I was an activist back in the day, and I still am, and I'm actually more active than you. You're just this silly socialist who just thinks that capitalism bad, but actually I know that capitalism in small amounts sometimes good. I mean, look at me, and like I'd be out there with you. I'd be out there fighting, but I just think that the rhetoric has gotten too.
Yeah.
And then they're like, these guys are gonna fucking roll right over you, old man, and they're terrified of it. And this is another on-screen depiction of that, where it's like,
yeah. Because through the whole film, whenever they take a picture, it's like Kirsten Dunst is using a digital camera,
yeah,
and then your one is using a film.
yeah,
And you can tell by the quality of the photo.
yeah,
Then the last picture taken after Dunst is killed, but it is the young one who takes it.
yeah.
It's a digital photo.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, so it's like she took her camera, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And then she like steps up, like walks over Kirsten Dunst's body, looks back. She's like, "You're the shit on my shoe. I could not."
Yeah.
care." She looks just like, "No, I'm in the game now, and I'm not. You're nothing to me. My mentors, what of them? Elders don't have any use for them. You know?"
Yeah.
And like, it's like that's what they're fucking like, and that's what Black Lives Matter is kind of like. It's like I can get on board with the message, but these kids, they're just so angry these days. And the fact that they can kind of say that and then still think that they're not old is also very funny.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like there was, to mention the Michael and Us episode about John Cleese having the dinosaur hour, where he's talking about like, these young kids with all of their fucking genders, like they've changed. And then Alex Garland would look at him and he's like, fuck that guy, I'm not him. And it's like, you fucking are him. You're looking at like these little kids with their ideas that Black Lives Matter and the way they go about it. And then like they will step over my corpse. So they go in and then this was another point in the movie where the Brazilian guy has been running around the whole time. I was like, doesn't have a camera, doesn't seem to be doing anything. And I was like, why the fuck is this guy here again? And then at the end, they were like, I have to conduct my interview. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that he wanted to interview this guy. And then they drag Ron Swanson out from behind the desk, and he's got his Trump tie on, and he's looking terrified. Like, and then they go, I want a quote. He goes, please don't kill me. And they're like, noted, kill him, done, ba 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 ba. And then Dream Baby Dream, whatever the name of that song is, comes on, and I was like, fuck off, the most quintessential Adam Curtis music, to come on. And just at the end where it's like, I don't know, he just could not have been more Brit Gen X guy, could have been, you know what I mean? With that stuff where it's like, well, here's what I know about America. California and Texas love their guns, so naturally they'd get together. You're like, fuck, it's just so stupid. I just and then I hated all the characters. I hated spending time with them. There was like one or two scenes that I really liked, like the amusement park shootout scene where they're on the road with the snowmen and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the bit with Jesse Plemons, and then maybe the fight scene, the kind of battle scene at the end. But it was like
yeah, the moments of spectacle were good.
Yeah.
But anything apart from that was completely incoherent.
Yeah. But then what I decided to do, which was like one of the most unfair things that I could have done to this movie, Zainab hasn't seen Children of Men, so he watched Children of Men.
Okay,
and I was like, it was just like, it just made me hate the movie so much more watching Children of Men.
Yeah. Children of Men is such an excellent film.
A bit that was cut off by the shitty mic. Every character in that movie, even if they only appear for 2 seconds, could have an entire movie about them.
Just kind of, for example, one time Theo is kidnapped by a group of terrorists who try to recruit him to do something. And he is in a room that is meant to be like basically boarded up so you can't tell what time of day it is. And there's newspapers all over the wall. And suddenly you're like, oh, you're seeing little stories indicating what's happening. There's things happening in the background, like he's going to, work, and there's just cages filled with migrants. There's all this like little hints of what happened and what's going on. And the other important thing is that it has an opinion that it bases it off of, which is that it's actually bad the way we treat migrants, and this is terrible. Whereas this film, Civil War, like they'll stop the movie to have characters trade exposition with each other, and then the exposition doesn't matter because he's kind of clueless about the world that he's creating. And then on top after that, then like again, we were saying about having his cake and eating it, where he's like, yeah, these journalists who are putting their life on the line to head out to the citizen journalists, okay? And then at the end, it's like, but are they as different as the army or like any? Do you know what I mean? Like once she steps over that one's dead body to take a photo of the president being killed, it's like, man, everybody sucks, don't they? And I was like, I mean, I guess. Like, what is the point of this movie? I didn't really understand what it was trying to say, or like why it was in such a rush to say it is another thing, like there is a feeling from him. He's like, this is a story that I feel very passionately about and was urgent that I tell, and it's contemporary and it's about what's going on in our present day life. And then you're like, okay, well, what do you have to say? It's like, just like, God, it's hard to tell who's good or bad, really, isn't it? It's like, not really. I mean, like, you have like open racists, like, I don't know. I feel like it's very easy to take a position against like these evil forces in politics.
Yeah, like on one side is Black Lives Matter. It just doesn't seem all that hard to tell which side is good, which side is bad.
I know. So that was the movie. I didn't like it. James loved it. 10 out of 10 from him. Watch Children of Men, I would say.
Yeah.
Just watch Children of Men instead. Also has the added texture of Britain, which is just more interesting for some reason. Because like the dystopian US, again, just look like The Walking Dead or The Last of Us, or just pick whatever American dystopian thing you have. And they are the same generic choice in songs where it's like some sort of acoustic guitar and gravelly voice country singer. It's like, the road's taking me down some ugly places, and then every so often they'll have De La Soul or that song from the Adam Curtis documentaries, which are, I don't know, maybe heard them on like Marks and Spencer's ads or something. That's a feeling like of just these guys in London looking over. Isn't it terrible what's happening in America? People just need to calm down, sit around a table and sort this whole thing out, for fuck's sake. Anyway, was my mic just cutting out again and again there?
No, I was listening.
Just had nothing to say.
That doesn't say.
That's fair. Don't know. What do you make of that opinion or anything? Or like, what was your take? What do you mean? Yeah. Final thoughts on the movie and my take versus your take.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
Okay. Yeah.
Roughly equal.
Say
it again there. Just see if it sparks anything more.
Is there any other thing to say in this? I wrote down some notes once I got back from the movie as well.
Yeah, get the notes out.
Well, I mean, I read out most of them as I was talking. Can't even read my own. Oh yeah, have its cake and eat it. Which looks like, in my writing, have it a cake and epsit. I'm just so excited to get my fucking thoughts out.
I wonder what his next film will be.
Yeah.
I wonder what his next film is going to be.
Do you know he got like really mad that people were getting mad at him over his movie? He's like, I'm never directing a movie again. So apparently he's just only going to be writing shit from now on.
Okay.
And he actually might be writing 28 years later.
Yes.
I know. And Danny Boyle will be back to direct. So I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do this. Yeah. There you go.
Well, how many stars would you give it?
What's the maximum amount of stars again?
20?
20. I feel like it wouldn't be 20 because wouldn't it need to be like 5, like an uneven number?
25?
Okay. Oh my god, you fucker. Just trying to do the maths now. Just like I would give it 2 out of 5.
It was 10.5.
If you say so.
12
I just think that there are better versions of this movie out there, and I thought it was confused and it wasn't saying much. But if you wanted to see some little, I don't even know if the action scenes would hold up if you're not watching it on a big screen either, because part of like the immersive quality of them was having it just be right up in your head, in your face. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure if that'll hold up on a rewatch. And then again, just watch Dread. You know. Like,
What would I give it, you ask? I would give it...
I didn't, but
I would give it 15.
15 out of 25.
5.
So what does that mean?
Means what it
That
is.
5 stars. That's about like 3 or 4 stars. Out of
3.
5.
3.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. All right, well, that was the end of that. Bye.